welcome to Today in Woburn. Today, I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and I'm welcoming Mayor Scott Galvin, as always, but also we're going to have a special episode really focused on the Woburn Business Association and all the small businesses that make up our community and need our help and need our support and do amazing, wonderful things for all of us, and I'm excited to talk with you about that. Before we jump into business topics, there are some pandemic-related housekeeping, Scott, that I'd love to chat with you about and just make sure we catch up our neighbors and friends on what's been going on.
Yeah.
Great. The first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the Woburn Patch. To be quite direct, I thought their headline was a little bit misleading. They wrote an article that said we were a hot spot for COVID. I think when you read the article, it was factual and accurate, but I think the headline was a little alarmist.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your perspective on what that meant and if it has those testing results have changed anything in our behavior or anything from the health department or anything that we need to know about.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it caught us a little off guard. You know, it was a little, as you said, the patches sometimes is a little inflammatory. To put a little background on it, the number of cases that we had during that 2-week period, there were 24 cases that ran from June 24th to July 7th, or July 8th. So the 2-week period, there were 24 new cases. And just since that, the 6 days since that, from Thursday till today, we've had 3 cases.
Okay.
And honestly, it's based on the positivity rate. You know, when you test, you know, it's a formula that the state's using. We don't use it because we don't know how many people are actually getting tested. So it's a ratio of the number of people who get it. That's the positivity rate that are tested. So that's what the state's using to determine what they consider hot spots. And we weren't in that. I don't think we're in that threshold anyway. But again, everybody does have to remember that, you know, all around the Commonwealth, we're reopening, and the more people get out there, the more people are going to get COVID. And we do, as I think your point was going to be next, we still have to remember that it's very important to keep wearing your masks, to social distancing, and do all those things that I think we have been doing right along in Massachusetts that other states haven't been doing. And again, that's not to say that, you know, sometime that we might see another spike, because we don't know. We don't control the disease. I mean, that's something that it's taking its own course, and we can only do the best we can. And I think that you know, you can't go into a store in Woburn without putting a mask on. I guess I haven't heard of anybody complaining that people aren't wearing masks in stores. I do hear, you know, that people are seeing more people outside without masks on. And again, you know, being outside, I think, is a little different. I say this, Samantha, I've been saying this for the past, ever since I've been coming to the show, I carry my mask with me, but when I'm running, I don't like to wear one. I can't wear one. And I think a lot of people who are exercising, they have the mask with them. Some wear them, some don't. But for the most part, if you're going to be in a situation when you can't outside, when you can't socially distance, you should have a mask on, or at least have it with you. And I think we're doing the right things. But again, everybody does have to realize the more we get out, the more that it opens. If the disease is still with us, then we're going to see more cases.
Yeah, I love that you've been doing this show with me enough that you anticipated what I was going to say, which was completely correct. But I do think it's important. So I did think that headline was a little bit alarmist, but I think the data is something we watch. And I'm grateful that you and the Board of Health and the state of Massachusetts are monitoring these things very closely and are watching it so that we get early signals, right? We get an early signal that says, look, nothing's wrong, but we need to watch it. Be a little bit more cautious. Double check you're doing all the right things. Make sure you don't stop washing your hands, you know, all the good and important stuff that we're doing. So thank you for confirming that. It's good to know the numbers have leveled out a little bit. We'll continue to watch and be vigilant about that.
To follow up, we did, when we saw that, we did look to see, is there an area where there's, you know, is there an area of concern? And there's not. I mean, there were 24 cases over that period. It was, you know, less than 2 a day, but there was no cluster, or there was no area to say, geez, there's a problem over here. And that's where they're all coming from. So we looked at that, didn't see it. And as you said, we're lucky to have the state with a great governor and our Board of Health has been really strong on this since the start. So I'm happy with the work Jack Freilich, Megan Doherty, Trish Bergeron, John Booley, and Karen Campbell have been doing down the Board of Health. So they do a good job.
Yeah, thank you for that, for recognizing that we did look at the data and make sure there wasn't an action that was particularly creating a little bit of a tick up that we needed to watch, and we appreciate all those updates. And the city's been doing a nice job of keeping the website and stuff updated as well. So thank you for clarifying all that, making sure we're all on the same page. Yep. We'll continue to watch that. We also know that phase 3, which started recently, opened up some more things that we can do. One of those things is we can open the library building for limited services. Not every town's libraries are opening the physical building. And I know that there are plans in the works. Do you have an update for us in terms of when we can expect to hear that timeline and schedule and what will be coming next?
Well, we've been working on this for the past, since we heard the news, which again, remember we said it was a surprise. It was a very pleasant surprise. But our plan is to be open on August 3rd. Okay. And again, it's a limited opening, but it's 40% of the capacity. So again, we're excited because we have such a large building, and that'll allow us to have a good, healthy operation. So we're excited about that, and we're working on how we set up different rooms, and the social distancing, removing certain desks, putting up plexiglass, and we're meeting with the unions as we speak. We have a meeting tomorrow. So things are moving ahead. We feel in a positive direction.
Good. Well, that's a great date to strive for, and I'm sure we're all going to be looking forward to it. I'm glad to say we are fortunate that we do have a very large library in terms of physical space now that we have the renovation, so that's going to allow us to serve a lot of folks. So thank you for that update. Yeah. We also talked, so this episode is going to be all about small business. I'm super excited to be talking about that. I can't tell you the number of people who send me private messages, who want to give a shout out to businesses, who want to recognize and remind us all that they make up our local economy, and that we as neighbors and residents and customers and friends and employees can do things to support them. So I'm glad to have this episode. A few weeks ago, Scott, you and I talked about some grants the city was applying for. I know those processes move slowly. Are there any updates on that we should let folks know about?
So that microloan process that is part of the non-entitlement CDBG cities and towns, that's moving ahead. We got an update just the beginning of the week, so we haven't got the money yet, but we do expect to have it shortly, and we'll be partnering with the WBA, and other business entities, but to get that information out and to help people get access to those micro loans, which will really help the small businesses. And we've worked very well with Chris and the WBA on the restaurant initiative, which I thank Chris a lot for making his his members aware of how we were working with the WBA to get restaurants get them open and use their outdoor area. So Chris was a great help, and I want to thank him for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Scott, for joining us. We appreciate those updates. I'm going to invite Chris Kisiel, who's the director of Woburn Business Association, to join the conversation now. I should also just, declare that Chris was also my wedding photographer, who will not say how long ago it was, because that will make me feel really, really old. But always puts a smile on my face, Chris, when I see your name pop up somewhere. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. That makes me feel even older, though. Remember that.
I should say I was a child bride,
Yeah.
So, thank you for coming on the show, and thanks for the work. I think I saw a virtual wine tasting event that's coming up that the WBA is doing, and I know a lot of the work that the Woburn Business Association has done has been sort of physical events and networking, and it's been nice to see things pivot to the times that we're in, but we know that's not easy. What are some of the things that the association has been doing to help the community come together at this time and help each other?
Well, from a business community, of course, one of the big things, like you said, in the past, it was always a kind of handshaking, which is taboo now. Handshaking, networking, meeting up, and gathering up and having a drink or so, and networking, basically, which is what the Woburn Business Association, which is Woburn's chamber, is pretty much all about. and just kind of letting them, get to know all the different members. And then as they come on board, more recently when I started in August, getting their name out there, getting the word out there and letting people know what's going on. With what's going on now, of course, that we've gone more on the Zoom side, that wine networking coming up, the wine tasting coming up is being put on by one of our members who is a wine distributor. And that is something just a little different. It's somewhat networking, but it's probably more so on the fun side. We've been trying to do a Zoom networking almost every week, or pretty much every week. I think we skipped right around July 4th, which when we get a lot of people that come on and they, they'll say a 2 or 3 minute spiel about their company and what they're all about. It's, it's almost the same, kind of work in the room, we'll call it. The difference is, of course, that you can be anywhere. It's kind of funny because I think at the end of all this, there might be some hybrid pieces where we have a live networking sometimes and more of a Zoom for people that just can't get out. They've got kids or work commitments. They can be stop in their car, put a virtual background behind them, and talk for 15, 20, 30 minutes or so. So it's kind of funny, what's coming from all this. Obviously a lot of negative, but from the standpoint of how the future looks for the business association and so on. But we've been trying to help a lot of the small businesses, and with the help of Scott, obviously, with his office, Board of Health, and so on, people that just really, and a lot of the local banks as well, really how to navigate through all this, because at the beginning of all this, there was so much information that just came out, and really no one knew what was going on. You'd hear one thing, and then it was so fluid. The next week, it would be something different. So people were confused if they hadn't followed it day by day. So with the help of City Hall and obviously the different departments, they were open, not in person, but definitely by phone and emails and so on. So we would kind of set them up with those different departments to give them some help. The local banks were fantastic with the SBA loans and so on. Most of them took on so many. It was amazing. Some actually shut off where they couldn't take anymore. Then when it slowed, they opened it back up again to help out a lot of the businesses get some money. Some needs to be paid back, some not, depending on the situation. The PPP, that was a huge deal to try to really navigate that. The bigger companies, it was pretty easy. As you saw, a lot of major corporations around the country were getting huge amounts of money because they had a staff of people that would do that for them. But the small business, like myself, Brian, who's on, Amy, who's on, different small businesses, and Woburn's made up of so many of them. They were struggling to really figure it all out. They didn't have a lawyer on staff or an HR department or somebody that could kind of handle that. So that's where we came in, a lot of it, trying our best to understand it. We listened to the governor daily, and anything in the local papers that came out, and the Globe and so on, of what's happening, and try to decipher what's important for our members and the Woburn business as a whole. So that's been our job, I guess we'll call it, for the last 3-4 months anyways, is really just trying to help the businesses stay afloat and kind of work it out, and doing networking still, which I think is important, because a lot of companies kind of transition to do a lot of different things. They were starting to sell differently, meaning a drive up and restaurants that were only doing takeout, obviously by law, things like that. So it's people that transitioned well. And again, they're looking at it from a hybrid standpoint too, saying going forward, that might be something they stay with a little bit more. So it's been a struggle for a lot of small business, no question.
Thank you for Chris. Thank you for being there for us and for helping in the association, and helping sort of elevate and get answers to questions and to do some of the things. I do like the notion that some of that virtual activity may continue over time. I think that's really, really helpful. I think one of the things that myself included, I don't always fully recognize the diversity of business in Woburn. I often think it's about the restaurants or some of the retail shops that I go to, but we have a very rich set of businesses that operate here in Woburn. Can you talk a little bit about that variety?
Well, I mean, if you mean diversity from size, I mean, we're membership, and obviously the businesses in Woburn, and I don't know all the businesses. I'm trying to get to know them and have them become part of us if they're interested. From Skyworks, $1 billion company, to Andrea's Pizza downtown. I mean, a small business like that. So the diversity overall is amazing, and I think if you look at the percentage of small businesses. It makes up I couldn't tell you exactly the percentage because City Hall probably has more of those numbers, but it's a huge piece. The diversity of the types of families, from small families to larger corporations that are still part of a family, like a Martinetti's over there. It's a family business, but it's a pretty big deal. I mean, they've got a couple of locations, things like that. So I've just seen so many, and beginning, being in Woburn all my life. I mean, a lot of these businesses have been around forever, but as the executive director, I've gotten to know a lot more of them. So I'm just seeing a huge difference.
We have medical practices, we have manufacturing, we have software companies, we have
Everything.
Restaurants, we have retail, we have, landscape. We really have a breadth of companies that are in our city. We're fortunate and lucky to have that. One of the things that I think has been a challenge is for people to understand how to support those local businesses, particularly the small businesses who, that have less capital, that have less ability to flex with time. But before we do that, I just want to clarify, you mentioned PPP, and I just want people to know that's not a little, I gotta go potty dance going on. For those who might not be familiar with that term, that's the Paycheck Protection Program. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Right. Yeah. So that was something that was done in both a national level, and the state has done some things, and that's were loans and grants that were available to different communities. So when Chris was talking earlier about making the connections and helping small businesses taking advantage of things that came through, it was the CARES Act and other legislation, that's what you were referring to.
Sure.
You did bring a couple of special guests with you today, Chris, which I'm really excited about, and we can't wait to meet them. Before we meet Brian and Amy, I wanted to just give a second for you to talk about joining the Woburn Business Association does have some costs associated. There's not very much overhead or process. Is there, what should people know about if they want to get involved today and take advantage of some of the information sharing and networking that you have made available?
Sure. Well, like any chamber, which, like I said, we are, they could give a call, of course, go to our website, www.woburnbusiness.org, and they can sign up. Obviously, getting the benefits of what a chamber is, all is the networking piece and so on. The small businesses, employees, it's $225 a year. Which is a pretty reasonable amount when you think of if you're looking for one small job, you probably end up getting that right away. Larger corporations, like I said, like a Cummings and or Skyworks would be on the higher end, a little over 1,000. So there's a huge range in between, about 5 or 6 different levels. So it depends on your employee count, but it's a great way to really get your name out, network, and be part of the community and kind of have a little more credibility, because we get a lot of calls from people saying, what companies do you recommend, and so on. So we try to stay within network, of course. So it's a good opportunity for anyone interested. They can just reach out and see what they want to do.
Great. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us so much. And thank you for bringing 2 special guests. I'm going to introduce Brian Gilgun. Did I pronounce that correctly, Brian?
You did. Yes, Samantha.
Excellent. Brian is the president of another word I'm not going to be able to pronounce. Adzemen Demolition Company?
You did perfect.
Oh, you're just being nice to me, but I'll take it. So,
no, you got it. You got it perfect.
So I am going to have Brian talk a little bit about the business that he runs, but I also want to acknowledge he's done some really wonderful community service for us recently. There is a lot of debris and things that were left on the bike path, the Tri-County bike path, and Brian and his team were kind enough to help clean up a lot of that for us. So thank you, Brian, for contributing to the community and helping us have a very special place to do, which we probably need now, some extra outdoor space and places to clear our head more than ever.
Yeah, well, the pleasure's all ours. We're happy to help.
That's great. So, Brian, just for those who aren't familiar with your business, I think you do interior demolition. Tell us a little bit about what that means.
So we do interior demo, which means we focus primarily on office spaces, retail spaces, residential, and hospitals. And what we'll do is if there's a renovation going to happen, we'll go in there and take out all the required finishes to accommodate whatever type of work, new work that they want to put in there. So we'll take out ceilings, floors, walls, concrete, you name it, and we'll demo it.
Well, I hope you get as much pleasure out of taking down a wall as my husband does. He's in construction as well, and he doesn't do that every day, but he always comes home in a good mood when he's been able to smash stuff up. So
yeah, it lets the stress out.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has impacted your business. I know parts of construction work were able to continue, but certainly there are, you're inside a building, there are extra precautions I imagine you and your team have to be taking.
Absolutely. Well, we were very fortunate that they allowed some of the residential work to continue. So we were able to kind of limp by on that and keep some of the regular guys busy enough doing that type of work. Our commercial side got hit pretty hard just because everything was shut down. People didn't want to pass permits. And then it became an issue of, if we do get in here and go, how do we go about doing it safely and not, contaminating the space and, people involved in the project. So it took a little time, but things are back up and running now. A lot of that responsibility comes down on my general contractors and customers out there, and they've been great. They set up wash stations on the job sites if there isn't one already. They are always maintaining them. They always have someone on site going through and Windexing and making sure that any highly touched area that could be shared by others is clean and sanitized before somebody else comes and touches it.
Great, thank you. That's a good reminder. There's a lot of complexity into doing this kind of work, and I don't think we always realize the safety precautions and things like, hey, if we're demoing the building, we may not have water and a normal sink and the normal things that we have.
Yeah.
So we got to prepare to do things like wash stations. So I'm glad to hear that the community is supporting you in that effort. What are things that we as Woburn residents and neighbors can do to help support your business and businesses like yours?
You can always give us a call if you have any demolition work coming up. We push our internet presence pretty strong. So, a nice, easy thing to do is just give our website a click, check out some of our things on there. It helps us move up Google, and we get a lot of great results out of Google right now, and we want to keep that going and try and keep the business running.
That's excellent. So give us a shout out for your website.
My website is www.adzemendemolition.com. It's spelled ADZEMENDEMO.com.
Thank you for doing that. I was going to ask you to spell it. You anticipated my next question.
I'm used to that question after that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit about your experience. I'm glad to hear the work is starting back a little bit more steady and that we were able to support you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now I'd like to introduce Amy Zaslow from Apple Spice. I almost said apple juice, which is completely wrong. Amy joins us in a particularly interesting situation in that you launched an office, like all the worlds colliding into a not so perfect storm, right? An office catering business in April in the middle of a pandemic. Tell us a little bit about what that has meant for you and the things that you've had to do to adjust your business.
Sure. So we were almost built out when the pandemic hit. And we were very lucky because the town allowed contractors to be here and provided inspectional services, the ability to be here. We were very grateful to them for getting us to a point where we could open. Since we couldn't sell to our primary market, which was businesses, we started by making bread, which is the most important thing about the sandwiches. We have really special bread. And we were donating those to some churches, to the Dwelling Place, to the Woburn Housing Authority. And then we started to make box lunches for people who are helping to take care of the elderly. I could just not imagine having a job where you were telling somebody to stay in their room time after time after time. And so when I had looked around to where we should donate, I felt like that was an overlooked area. So we donated to an Alzheimer's unit and to a nursing home, a rehab facility, and some other places. We started a GoFundMe campaign to help with that. And it was really well received. And now what we're doing is we're looking for places that are open, and we're doing a lot of tastings and getting our meals out there, and it's been very well received. It's gratifying to at least know, even though people aren't really at work, that what we're doing is something that will be looked forward to. So
Well, thank you so much for supporting our community. My mother-in-law has Alzheimer's and is in nursing home care, and my father-in-law is in care. And you know, you're not kidding when you say that they've been in lockdown. They really, quite literally, are not allowed to leave their room. Meals are brought to them. They have a bathroom facility in the room that they share. And so I'm personally touched and grateful that you're supporting the team that takes care of them, because that is not an easy job. And I now really, really want warm bread with butter. And I'm not so sure what that means for dinner time, but it's got my mouth watering, and I'm certainly going to do that. One of the things that I know has been a challenge, not only to sort of the target audience that you were serving, and you've found a way to serve the community overall, and we appreciate that. There's also a lot of safety measures that you do in food service anyways, but right now there's extra precautions that our food providers are being asked to do. What are some of the things that you're doing to protect those who are both preparing and delivering food, as well as the customers receiving it?
Sure. Well, we require that everybody working in our kitchen is safe certified, which is not a requirement. We, of course, are wearing gloves and masks whenever we're working with food, and we're delivering with those also. You know, we have a thermometer to check people when they're coming in. We're doing contactless delivery for people who want it. And we're just trying to be careful in every way we can. We have somebody who was on a plane who's now quarantined for 2 weeks. So we're trying to be really careful. We've had the same small staff from the beginning, and we're pretty sure where everybody's been. So we're not really hiring right now very much to keep it safe and controlled.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for all the mouth-watering treats you're delivering to the community. I know many of us can't wait to try them for ourselves. Why don't you go ahead and give a shout out to that GoFundMe page, so that if folks want to contribute to the cause, they know where to find you.
Sure, it's Greater Boston. It's Apple Spice Greater Boston. If you type that in, you'll find it.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And Brian and Amy, you are what makes us, this community, fabulous. You're building businesses and you're supporting us as neighbors. And I'm really excited to help folks understand all the opportunities they can to support your businesses and the many others that make Woburn their home. We appreciate it. Thank you, Chris from the Woburn Business Association, for joining us and talking a little bit about the mission of the organization. And of course, Scott, for delivering the very good news that we have a target date by which the library we hope to open. Of course, illness tracking and things may change that, but I know the team is working hard to hit that August 3rd. So I'm grateful for that. As always, thank you so much to our audience for tuning in. And please, please continue to take very good care of each other.